right, hello and welcome to the latest episode of Inside the Incident. I am Andrew Burt, CEO and co-founder of Luminous.ai. I am joined by
Sean McGregor, founder of the AI Incident Database.
We wanted to talk to folks about what could go wrong from a legal liability standpoint. And in particular, we wanted to talk about torts. So, Sean, I know you got up this morning and you were extremely excited to talk about torts. Do you want to give the audience any background on why you are so excited about torts?
Torts are the whole reason I'm here in this building in the basement of Harvard Law School as a computer scientist. I'm a bit of an odd duck here, but the thing I've been doing on my evenings is actually taking a no-credit torts course. And torts, for the uninitiated, are lawsuits. It's related to legal liability. And if you're in AI safety, this is really the lever that hasn't been pulled yet until recently. In the digital safety space, this is the most powerful force in the universe, legal universe, seems to be torts.
All right, Sean lives for torts. I don't know if I live for torts, but I'm excited you're excited about today's episode. Okay, so before we begin, we're going to talk about things that could go wrong. We're going to talk about torts. We're going to talk about financial liabilities, what that means. A few caveats. This is not legal advice. I am a lawyer, not your lawyer. For lawyers here who specialize in torts, please don't be angry at us. The idea is to give a very basic overview. All right, so let's start. So the reason torts exist is because you can have obligations under a contract. If Sean and I want to do something together, we sign a contract, all of those obligations are there in writing. If we don't sign a contract, or if there's something over and above a contract that the legal system recognizes, that's why torts are there. This has to do with things that aren't in contract, and it has to do with things that aren't criminal law. So there's a distinction. There's criminal law. That is when the legal system can take things like time away from people who commit crimes. Civil law is mostly meant to take away things like money. So there are like dozens of torts. When we think about the incidents we've covered so far and Inside the Incident, 4 major torts stand out. So the first is product liability. Basically, if you're creating or you're selling some product, you are legally responsible for anything where the product is defective or unsafe and harms consumers. There's defamation. This is when you have a false statement presented as a fact and it causes some type of harm. There's negligence. This is going to be a big one. There's something called a duty of reasonable care. Again, this is something that all citizens are expected just to know. There's certain behaviors that are deemed reasonable. And if you violate that and it causes harm to someone, you can be committing the tort of negligence. There's the infliction of emotional distress. This is when someone commits extreme or outrageous or outlandish conduct and it causes severe emotional harm to another person. So these are the 4 big torts we're going to talk about. They're the 4 big torts we typically hear about on the news when there are civil lawsuits. And with that brief overview, we are going to move to a game that Sean is going to play. I'm both excited and I'm scared.
So we're going to be playing a game, and the game is called Find the Tort. We're going to list an incident, and Andrew is going to do his best to, in lightning round fashion, to say what the tort is, who might be sued under tort. So, are you ready, Andrew?
I woke up this morning ready for this.
Oh, you've been looking forward to this for years, I'm sure. All right, so starting off. Incident 826, Character.AI chatbot allegedly influenced teen user towards suicide amid claims of missing guardrails.
This is interesting in the sense that this actually happens quite frequently. So there are all sorts of ways that chatbots and large language models guide people to actually hurt themselves or do things that could otherwise like have really negative results. So there are a couple different torts that could be involved. One is just like product liability. The product is just broken. It's not doing what it's supposed to do. That could include something like design defect, which is a tort, or a failure to warn. That's something really, really specific in the US. We're a very litigious society. You see like warnings everywhere. And so that might be one here. But again, I think the theme of what we're going to talk about is negligence. There's certainly some type of negligence where there should be guardrails. If you're going to release a product, you better make sure that it doesn't help people kill themselves. And so I would say the guardrails in this circumstance seem to be very, 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 very insufficient.
So certainly inefficient when looking to prevent harm. All right. Incident 530. Telegram channels allowed users to make non-consensual deepfake porn as paid service. Andrew, please find the tort.
Extremely bad. This is extremely bad for a host of reasons. I think one of the things about this incident is that I don't say like violently, but there's an excessive violation of all sorts of types of laws. So outside of just tort liability, there are all sorts of laws related to privacy. There are all sorts of laws related to what you can do with inappropriate images. There's potential inappropriate sexual exploitation laws that could be included in this related to minors. In fact, in the very description of this incident, it talks about underage girls and women. And so there are very, very strong claims just for like statutory issues. And most of what we've been talking about is civil law, but I think there's a very strong case for actual criminal prosecution here. So lots of bad stuff going on. There are privacy torts where you can't actually violate people's privacy. You can't use their image without their consent. There is very clearly, we talked about earlier, the intentional infliction of emotional distress. So causing people severe harm emotionally due to outrageous behavior. Potential defamation. We talked about defamation, which at a high level involves saying something false about someone that causes an actual harm to their reputation. You can imagine some type of sexual deepfake being released, causing, that is false, causing very, very serious harm. So I don't want to say that covers every tort, but as far as the incidents we've talked about today, this by far is this is a big kahuna.
Yeah, and this is one I've encountered in the course of engineering. We're trying to figure out how to engineer systems of avoiding this type of content, filtering out and getting rid of it. There's a bunch of things in the production of guard systems that it makes guard systems hard to produce because you can't trade in or work with the material which you need to filter out. It makes a computer system basically radioactive for all intents and purposes. So this is unfortunately one we're likely to see in platforms and other things for a while because it's just so hard to navigate as a platform as well.
I'll also just say, so for a lot of the I would say especially agentic AI incidents, which we've talked about before, a lot of it is new and it's cutting edge and describing and kind of coming to agreement on what's a reasonable standard or what's a reasonable standard for some type of safety mechanism can be harder. But when you're talking about this type of issue, which also touches on content moderation, that's been around for a very long time. It's very clear that there's certain things you can't do. And I would say that this is one of them.
Let's do 1436, incident 1436. A Clarent Trudy navigation system was alleged to have misguided sinus surgery, reportedly contributing to patient's stroke. I think in the medical space in particular, it's probably going to be easier for you to find a tort, Andrew. Is that likely the case?
So, yes. However, I'm not sure that this is going to be the AI system. So this is one of the things, there's probably some contractual stuff between the AI system and the actual doctor relying on it. But I would say if a doctor is relying on AI for not just medical advice, but for advice related to operating on someone, I would say that's pretty clearly some type of breach of care. There's certainly negligence. There's going to be some type of tort related to actual physical harm. So I would say this is not the AI system's fault, although certainly the AI should do better, and there's maybe some type of claim there. But I would say the big one is going to be against the actual doctor who should have known better.
Yeah, and that's especially true of trained professions with standards and duty of care, a special duty of care, right?
Yes, and I would say one of the other things that's actually interesting about this is there's a specific cognitive bias called automation bias, which we're seeing more and more of, which I have wildly. I had a car a little bit ago that could self-park. And within 5 minutes, I completely forgot how to parallel park. And I would just rely on it. And so there's an automation bias. There's a bias where I say, oh, this machine can do better than I can. So I'm just going to do whatever it says. And this is an example of that.
On this next one, we're going to talk about automation bias or descaling of sorts. We're going to talk about incident 2.2. Waze navigates motorists into wildfires. And this is specifically in Southern California, not far from where I'm from. The Waze system noticed that people were driving real fast. Turns out the reason for that is there was a wildfire that was basically enveloping the freeway, and people tend to both drive quickly and usually not drive into the areas of wildfires. Andrew, can you find the tort?
Lucky number 22, one of my favorite incidents. Yeah, I mean, this is something that is pretty, the harm could be pretty severe. I think the standard of care, the duty for the folks at Waze to think about situations where there's a massive, emergency, and make sure they're not actually guiding people to it. So I think this would be very, very clearly some type of claim for negligence. And then whatever the physical claims are related to people actually being hurt. And so I think there is probably a whole soup of torts related to this. And in some sense, you can think about this as the greater the harm, the more likely there is to be some type of tort involved. And encouraging someone to drive into a raging wildfire is going to be pretty bad in terms of what could go wrong and who could get hurt. So, Sean, did I win? And if so, what do I win?
There is no winning in the game of torts, Andrew. It's the the goal of torts is to make it so that there are no torts in the future, that they're unnecessary, that there's nothing happening that's bad.
And our wonderful producer here, Amanda, is making a joke that I have to include, which is we said that some of these there was a soup of torts, and in that sense, there may be some type of tortilla soup. Blame her if you don't like that joke. Please blame her and not me. I'm just a messenger. Okay, Sean, what did you learn today as a data scientist? We talked about torts, and we talked about how AI incidents can implicate a host of other laws that exist that don't have to be called AI laws, that don't have to be covered in the news.
This already exists out there. It's built on a long and grand tradition of liability in the United States and other legal jurisdictions. And this is a power to yield responsibly to produce more responsible systems.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us today. If you'd like to learn more, please go to the AI Incident Database. If you want to learn more about Luminos, please go to luminos.ai. We have a blog that now actually has really fun content.
And thank you, Andrew. And if you want to learn more about incidents, go to incidentdatabase.ai. More incidents all the time. Please report them when you view them.
And thank you for tuning in.